Guyana feels very honored to have secured Council's agreement that this, its 17th meeting, be held here in Georgetown at the CARICOM Secretariat headquarters. The matters of this 17th meeting are many, and if I may say so, monumental. But such must be its work in the context of a CARICOM and a Caribbean racked by the powerful aftermaths of a world in economic decline and a woefully neglected global crisis of violence. And may I add too, a third that is not too obvious. It is that paralyzing myth that we suffer from in this region and which we seem helpless to dispel, namely that effective security and law enforcement measures to help our people are impossible to be successfully realized. It does seem that no matter what we do, our people see our security and law enforcement sector as populated purely for predatory purposes and irredeemably committed to the ways of venality and violence. Consul and our individual territory security and our law enforcement agencies must halt this erroneous perception of our people concerning this important security sector. It is like a glass ceiling we have to break. We have to create a virtuous circle through programs which will create champions on the ground rather than a vicious cycle where villainy is exalted. This will only be done when through our wise counsel and meaningful decisions here, we bring that hope and trust. We have to lead our people out of this negative habit which teaches that crime and corruption is culture in these parts. It is not. Crime and corruption are choices, and bad ones at that, which they must never condone and against which they must speak out rather than acquiesce. If CONSLE is soon to become organ of CARICOM is to promote the development and implementation of a common regional security strategy to complement national security strategies and combat threats to regional and national security, then we here must construct projects of hope and trust and secure that freedom from violence and fear which will secure for our people in the Caribbean an opportunity to flourish and thrive and to do so in peace. I think that's the heavier part. On a lighter note, I want to remind you of our reputation for warmth and hospitality. So for those of my colleagues and their respective teams here who will stay on a bit, please enjoy the delights of our Guyanese cuisine, the majesty of our unspoilt flora and fauna, and so much more. Let your stay be meaningful and enjoyable. Thank you very much.
It is a distinct pleasure to welcome you to the headquarters of the Caribbean Community. I'm particularly pleased to note the level of ministerial participation in this meeting of the Council for National Security and Law Enforcement, CONSLE. This is certainly an indication of the seriousness with which our member states view the issue of security. It is also a measure of the confidence that a regional approach to addressing issues of security will redound to the benefit of individual members. It is noteworthy that this meeting takes place in the wake of the adoption by heads of government at their intersessional meeting in Belize last February of the protocol to incorporate CONSLE as an organ of the community and the CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security Impacts as an institution of the community. It has been signed by Guyana, St. Lucia, and Trinidad and Tobago, and I look forward to the other member states making the necessary arrangements to sign and ratify the protocol as soon as possible to allow for its entry into force. Honourable Ministers, given the present environment in many of our member states, the community's work in the area of crime and security has become more urgent. The issues to be dealt with are myriad, from the upward trend in the incidence of crime and violence, taking toll on our valuable human resources, to the external threats which challenge our peace and security. In light of these threats, we must deepen our resolve and remain committed to the task of further strengthening our regional security architecture through our individual and collective actions. As you'd be aware, at the 37th meeting held in Guyana last July, Heads of government devoted much of their time to deliberations pertaining to the security of the region. As you'd also be aware, there remain quite a few outstanding security agreements to be attended to by member states. Heads of government agreed then that member states should move to accede to and implement the key agreements, as most of the regional security agenda is linked significantly to the application of these legal instruments. The conference particularly requested that priority be given to the CARICOM Arrest Warrant Treaty. In this regard, I was advised that the Legal Affairs Committee has set in train efforts to have that agreement finalized for adoption at the 28th intersessional meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government in February 2017 to be held right here in Guyana. However, there are other legal instruments related to mutual legal assistance, airspace and maritime security, as well as the Advanced Passenger Information System, which have been languishing for far too long. I urge the members of this Council to brief the Attorneys General on the policy imperatives of concluding these outstanding items so critical to supporting our security architecture. The need for these instruments has been recognized at the highest levels of our community. There are other initiatives being pursued to strengthen our cooperation in this vital area. I look forward to the planned review of the CARICOM Crime and Security Strategy, which could lead to a reconfiguration and amplification of initiatives designed to address the emerging threats which loom larger by the day. Also, this Council has previously recognized the critical importance of information and intelligence sharing to the advancement of security cooperation with third states. I'm extremely pleased, therefore, to note the advanced stages of negotiations in this regard to a number of third states. A commitment has also been given to establishing a stronger partnership for the future between the Caribbean and the United States of America at the 6th Security Cooperation Dialogue held in Washington, D.C. last October. However, while we appreciate the financial and other assistance provided by third states, I cannot emphasize enough that the onus is on us, collectively, to demonstrate that we are indeed serious about our own security. I know that this meeting of the Council will examine the issues surrounding commitment to the financing of our regional security architecture, so important to ensuring the success of our development efforts in all other spheres. In that context, I must underscore the important role of IMPACS. It is the hub of the Regional Crime and Security Framework, along with its sub-agencies, the Joint Regional Communications Center and the Regional Intelligence Fusion Center. Every effort ought to be made to ensure that the agency continues to carry out its crucial role. Even in the face of the financial challenges which beset our governments, we must strive to support our security architecture while we seek to finalize a financial plan that redounds to the benefit of all regional institutions. As I close, I wish to take this opportunity to extend sincere thanks to the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Home Affairs of Barbados for continuing as chair of the conclave for one additional year, despite your hectic domestic schedule. Honorable Ministers, please accept my best wishes for a most productive meeting. I wish your deliberations every success. I thank you.
First, let me thank the Government of Guyana and the CARICOM Secretariat for hosting this 17th meeting of conclave. And indeed, Minister Ramjathan, let me say firsthand that I do always feel at home in Guyana. So you need not fear about me working hard and playing hard, as the saying goes. We meet at a time when I have to say that as a national security minister that I'm very concerned about where we are going as a region. Because not one of us isn't at this point in time faced with increased crime and increased violent crime. And it's regrettable that in some jurisdictions that we've made this into a political issue. That is, that from where I sit and from where I read and from where I listen, that rather than having a collective approach individually and collectively, we've made this, in some cases, into a political issue. This is not a political issue. It's an issue that is fundamental to the way of life of all of our people. And none of us can do this alone. Not one party, not one government. None of us can do this alone. And that's why it's important for us, when we leave here, to leave here addressing some very serious and critical issues. The issue of gangs, whether or not gangs are operating not only in their individual territories, but across our territories, we need to address. the issue of guns. We are seeing in most of our territories, we are seeing not only an increased amount of violent crime and use of firearms, but an increased usage of firearms from a myriad of sources. And from what I'm being told, enhanced or rather more powerful weapons are being used in our territories. So it is not a problem for Guyana, it's not a problem for Trinidad, it's not a problem for Barbados. It is a collective problem because we're all seeing it, and we need to address this in terms of why are we as a region seeing an increased use of firearms, an increased number of firearms, an increasing caliber of firearms flowing through a region that does not produce guns of any type. Is this linked to the free movement of people? Is this linked to our citizen by investment programs? What are the causes? Whatever the causes are, we need to utilize the best resources that we have. We need to utilize our individual entities. We need to utilize our regional entities. The ambassador mentioned impacts by way of an example. It is with some sadness that as I sit here, and I have been lamenting over the last couple of years, I might say, that all of our regional entities are still challenged financially. We have linked crime and insecurity as the fourth pillar of our CARICOM strategy. Yet, for some reason, as a region, we seem unable to provide the resources, either unable or unwilling to provide the resources necessary to address the crime and security in the region. Let me say to the obvious that, in fact, that you cannot have a sustainable oil and gas industry in Trinidad and Tobago if your crime is out of hand. You cannot have a sustainable tourism industry in Barbados if your crime is out of hand. You cannot have a sustainable oil and gas or tourism or other industry in Guyana if your crime is out of hand. In other words, to the obvious, unless we are able to control crime in our individual and collective states, we're going to be challenged financially continuously and stuff. I've been saying for years that there's no use Barbados being stable and St. Vincent having challenges. There's no use Guyana being stable and Jamaica having challenges, because the international community looks at us as a region. But that notwithstanding, I certainly look at us as a region where I will not be happy, and I'm sure that my brother from Trinidad will not be happy, or my brother from Dominica will not be happy if in fact that he is happy at home, or they're happy at home, but we are having challenges in other parts of the region. We have some very critical issues on our agenda. I know that we've only set aside a day, but we will work through these issues, and I'm satisfied, based on speaking to you individually, that we will leave here better off than we came this morning. So I look forward to our fruitful deliberations. I end by thanking the CARICOM Secretariat for organizing this, our 17th meeting. I'm grateful.
Thank you.